Hi, my name is Francesca. I started Shop with Natasha's store last year. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. Almost gave up a year ago and decided to really give it a go, and looking forward to your feedback. I made some horrible designs and I couldn't believe they sold. Uh,
Oh, I love
mean,
it that you're honest. You're like, I made some
I was
horrible designs, but they actually sold, and I was actually shocked. All right, Francesca, we are going to get rocking and rolling here with your Etsy shop audit. I'm just going to run through what you gave us on the intake, and then we are going to dive in. So, shop name is Shop with Natasha Store. Shop age is 9 months old. At least that's what it was on the intake. So it's probably a little bit older. We'll get to the actual specifics here in a second. The niche, nurses and cottage core. Sticking point, advertising and visibility, basically traffic. And then total revenue, $45,000, which is great for under a year. That's amazing. And then income goal is 100,000 in 2024. And I already took a peek, and I think that you're probably in a good spot to hit that. So we'll dig in and we'll get into all of that stuff. So why don't you just give us a little bit of a backstory or clean up anything that I missed there, as far as like where you are right now and kind of where you want to go and what your sticking points are.
So when I started last year, I really didn't know what niche to focus on. I tried many different things, and I created more things of the ones that were selling. Obviously last year was my first Q4. I didn't know what to expect, and it gave me momentum to my shop. But one of the things that I decided to do last year was to my goal was to break even. My goal was not to make money. So I invested every profit penny that I had into Etsy ads just to get my momentum in my store and to see what's selling, what people want to buy. And, we had dead air right after December 12th or something like that. And very slow first quarter, which gave me time to reevaluate and see what I wanted to focus on for this year. Summer's been better than last year because I expanded into vacation shirts and group shirts, which helped me a lot during the summer. But I'm still struggling with traffic because I don't have 200 sales a month per item. I have a good momentum for my shop, but not really item specific or niche specific. So I know I need to clean up my store. So I really would like for you to look at it and let me know what you
We can
think.
do that. We can absolutely do that. So, I just, again, like when I was going through your intake and I was looking at your numbers and I was like, okay, like, and I think, and we'll get to it. Actually, let me pull that up right now so we can go ahead and see that. So let me pull this up. So this is from last year. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we have $44,889. You can see the graph, right? Like you started and then all of a sudden here comes Q4. Boom. Right.
Right.
Um,
Right. Most of it was in Q4.
Of course. Of course. Like my wife's was mainly in Q4. Like there's no denying that Q4 is going to be your biggest season. Like it's going to be. So, and I always tell people like, okay, so like if you look at so you started, it looks like you probably, well, you started in January, but it says like you really didn't start getting any sales, anything that even kind of registered up until what was that, April, May.
Yeah, I made some horrible designs and I couldn't believe they sold.
Oh, I love it that you're honest. You're like, I made some
I was
horrible designs, but they actually sold, and I was actually shocked.
I was learning, so I was,
I love it.
and I
Yeah.
sold some things to family, and they came out crooked and all kinds of things. So I learned a lot. But then so I did some graduation things that did well,
Yeah.
for the first month of sales,
Mhm.
and then a couple things for Father's Day, and then it was dead air. So I knew my designs weren't good, and my designs have evolved since then. But the ones that were selling last year still have them, and people are still buying them. And I would never design that again.
That's
But
funny. Well, it's funny. Years ago, my wife and I owned a photography studio, and we would always look back at like the pictures that we took when we first started to where we were like 5 years later, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe like we let these out of our studio." But people didn't care because to them, they didn't see it with a photographer's eye. They saw it as like, that's my children in a photo. You know what I mean? But it shows how much you've learned, how much you've grown, and I think that that's just normal. So I love that. But so right here, I mean, so that's really incredible though. Like to do almost $50,000 your first year. I think anybody that's watching this would be like, I'll take that. Like, that'd be great. And you learned a ton. And I think that's the thing I want to underscore there is like, you learned, like you've invested like everything back in, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. And I think that that's going to pay you dividends much later in even coming into this coming year. So, this right here, now, what is this from here? 30, is that this year?
Yes.
Okay. So again, okay. This is beautiful. So you almost are at what you did last year going through Q4. And here you are like 10, 12, $13,000, whatever it is, behind what you did all of last year, even running through a Q4. So you're not even in technically Q4. So that's where I said to myself, I'm like, okay, you have the potential to hit your 100K for sure, because you're almost there. I'm not there, but you're almost at the halfway point. And then from there in Q4, you're probably going to do probably double or triple what you did last year.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is profitability at this point. I decided for 1 year I will just run with Etsy ads, and I'm doing it on all my items. I'm not being selective because I don't know which ones are going to be the winners. And actually the ones that are doing well, I stop running ads on them because they're on the first page or second page anyway already, and they're costing me a lot of money in ads.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, I think that's fine.
When you say they're costing money, do you mean they're not profitable, or it's eating up a big portion of your budget?
It's eating up my profit, a big portion of my profit.
Okay. And so that may be in lieu of turning those off. And if you are comfortable sharing your Etsy ads data, we may dive into that. In lieu of turning those off, we may want to go in and look and see if there's some keywords that are the lower converters. One mistake that we see a lot of people make, and Scott, I want your take on this here in just a second, is they say, okay, I rank on the first page now organically. Cool. I'm going to turn off my ads.
Yeah.
Would you, Scott, rather have 2 positions on the first page or 1?
Yeah, I'd rather have 2. And what I'm going to be looking at with that is, like you said, Chris, if they're costing you money, I would want to be then making sure, like I'd want to fine tune it to where I might only be showing up for a handful of keywords, but those keywords are high converters. You know what I mean?
So in order for me to do that, and I'm listening to you guys all the time, so I kind of know what you're going to say, but in order for me to do that, I would have to turn off ads on some of the items that are not selling, because managing those keywords is a big job.
It is.
On Etsy. It's really time consuming. When I go back a week later to look at it again, Etsy threw more keywords that are not even related to my item. So I have to go through each item, and it's overwhelming sometimes just to manage that.
And that's where I think it would come down to, though, is like, okay, and I know you said you turn on the ads for all of them just to see what's going to hit, but it might be more beneficial for you to only advertise 10 or 15 products.
Right.
Because those are going to lead people
Maybe you help me which ones.
Yeah, I know. But
that's the thing, because some of the items that are about to expire, I'm ready to turn them off, to completely deactivate them, and then all of a sudden they start selling, because some of them take 6 months, or maybe I listed it in the wrong season. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Like things that I listed last year are now starting to sell. So maybe although it's an evergreen item, it's still seasonal. I don't know.
I think also too, another thing that you could do is you could look at the potential for the items that you are advertising and see if it's worth even advertising them. So what I mean is like if you're advertising something that doesn't have as much demand
Mm-hmm.
and you're like spending money to get that out there, you're spending money for very little ROI. But if you are focusing more on the products that are selling, you're getting more foot traffic in the door that can buy your other stuff without advertising it.
It makes sense. Okay.
That's kind of where I go. I would probably lean towards trying to figure out what is your pocket of products that are bringing in the bulk of the traffic, and then your products that are in the shop could then still be seen, and you could be getting sales that you're not driving traffic from.
Right. That makes sense, especially since I've been doing it for a year. My
You've
shop,
got plenty of data. Yeah, you've got plenty of data.
and my shop has some trust level, and
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Like you're set up right now for Q4, like you're like perfect. Like you're like ready. So like, and like right now, what are we in? July. Man, it's crazy. So like literally you're going to probably start to see, and again, if you plan for it, you're probably going to start seeing an uptick if you plan for it. And if you start putting in some of those items that could be purchased for Christmas or for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, for all these other holidays, you're going to probably see an uptick probably start in August. And then from there, it's going to start to gradually get more and more and more. And last year, you probably didn't have as much of a catalog. You didn't have as much data. So you didn't have as much of that stuff. So I think you're set up perfectly to do that. So I think you're in a really, really good spot. Let's keep digging through the screenshots that you sent me. So that's 32 grand from this year. And again, profitability, like you said, you've invested a lot of money back in, so you're not really worrying about that. But I think we can start thinking about, okay, you've done all this work, you've gotten everything, you've got good score within Etsy, you've really proven yourself to them, customer service, all that stuff. I think now's the time that you can start dialing that up, and especially because we're getting closer to entering Q4. When you enter Q4, like there's less resistance for people to buy because they kind of have to buy. Right.
Yeah, and I'm scared of Q4 because last year I was working 18 to 20 hours a day, and I'm doing more personalized stuff this year. So
yeah, my wife is still saying, I'm not sure I'm ready. Like literally. So we're actually going to do a little bit of house cleaning to see kind of like what are the ones that she should be focusing on, and kind of like trying to narrow it down so it's not as many different personalized items. But it's tempting because it's there. Like if you want it, it's there.
So do you suspend some items or deactivate some items purposely?
Yeah. If there's something that we're like, it just doesn't make sense to even do that, because you might sell a couple, but it's time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, and it's not driving in a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife in the beginning too was very much, she would accommodate anybody with anything. They'd be like, oh, can you do, this with, this color and with that font? And she's like, yeah, I'll do it for you, and then she would do it. And then she'd complain about it later and say, man, I spent so much time on that. I'm like, yeah, you could go get a job at like Wendy's and probably make the same amount, but you are making a customer happy and all of that. But she's also now seeing like she can't do all of that. So I think once you've proven yourself, like you have, you're set up now. I think you can start now honing in on what you want to do more of and kind of dial it in better. And I think right now is the time to do that for you. So yeah, I think you're set up in a really good place, but I get the fear of heading into Q4 with all the personalization and stuff. So yeah, I feel your pain there. Your conversion rate right now, 1.9 is good.
Is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'd say you're like this time of the year, or just up to this point of the year, there hasn't been any major thing. I mean, yeah, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you could say like those are holidays, or, times that would make people want to buy quicker. But I think on the average to have above a 1.5 is good. And if we went and sorted this by Q4 of last year, even your conversion rate's probably higher, right? Because people kind of have to buy,
it was 2.4.
2.4. Okay. So yeah. So let's move on here. So here's the Etsy ads. Now this was for last 30 days. So $11.97. So spent almost $1,200, brought in $2,026, 47 orders. Okay. 3,080 clicks, 264,000 views. So one thing I will say right off the bat is that you have picked a niche that has demand, which is good, right? Because sometimes people will turn on their ads and like, I'm only getting, 100 views in 5 days. It's like, okay, we got a problem, So clearly that's not the problem for you. But and I don't want to say it's a problem, but where there's opportunity is in the spend. And that spend could be trimmed. It's time consuming, but if we're advertising less products and the products that drive more of the traffic, that might make it where you're going to spend less, but you're going to actually generate either the same or more. And you're going to make more because you're probably going to get sales picked up organically because people are being driven to the store.
One thing I wanted to point out here, and it's usually not a thing we look at when we do Etsy ads audits, right? We normally look at, okay, views to clicks, what's our click-through rate? That's around a 1%. Awesome. Our conversion rate, that's like 1.5%. I think you said, Scott. Awesome. Our return on ad spend, it's a little below where I'd want to see it.
Yep.
But again, we're making $2-ish for every dollar that we're putting in. We're in an okay position. There's some room to optimize there. The thing here that gives me a heart attack is 4 cents per day per listing. Right? Somebody math check me. It's probably like 3.876, and somebody will write that in the comments, and that's fine. But if we have 1,150 listings at $44 a day, we're trying to have Etsy squeeze blood out of a stone, right? And so even if we have something that could do really well in ads, if it was seen more, there's the potential that one random product that happens to get that search that day where somebody clicks on the ad steals the budget away from that. And that really is the problem with having so many items. The limitation that Etsy ads has is you get one campaign with one budget.
Yeah,
right now.
That is,
and so we have to be really careful about what we put into that budget. Right. And in this case, if we're spending 4 cents per day per listing, we're actually never going to find out about the new products anyway, because the higher demand products are going to eat up all of that budget unless we turn them off, which then slows down our sales and puts us in a position where we don't want to be, or we massively ramp up that budget. So I think the answer to this is probably twofold. One, we need to reduce the number of products. And two, if we can optimize the budget, then we can add some of those back in because we know we're only ever going to spend $7 a day on our top seller or whatever it is. And we can start to add some products back in, inch the budget up because we're more profitable, and then we can add in more listings. But if we're spending 4 cents a day on each listing, which is essentially what we're allocating to Etsy, that's not how they actually use the budget, but that's how we have to think about it. That starts to become a problem because it doesn't allow us to optimize for what is working, because you can have one click on one thing one time and it eats up your chance for the sale that day. So we want to really hone that in first by pulling listings out,
right?
Then by optimizing, then by increasing budget first, number of listings second. Does that make sense?
Yes. I have a question. Do you guys manipulate your budget throughout the week or the month?
Generally not. Okay. I take that back. Right now, we're kind of like on cruise control, right? Like right now, might be spending $20 a day, maybe 30. But as we get closer, and I say closer, like what are we in July? Once we hit August, I'll probably dial that up to $50, $75.
Okay. So you increase it for busy season.
Until we get to the place, then we're going to start reducing it because we don't need to, because now all of a sudden we're ranking above everybody. And it's kind of like, we also, to be quite honest, is we don't want to be that busy. Like, it's like, like you said, it's like, there's only so much work you can do. So it's like, why are we spending this money to be this busy when we're not really? And again, this is our, my wife's side business thing. That's not our full focus. And really, like for her, Q4 is like the busiest time, and it's kind of like her like thing. And then after that, she's kind of like coasting. So the way that I look at it is you want to capitalize. If this is your main thing, Q4, you kind of have to go all in on. But the budget will kind of like go like, you're going to slowly ramp it up. And then all of a sudden, when you start to see like steady sales, or sales are starting to flow in really good, then I would probably start to either reduce budget So that way there, it kind of slows things down. But although you might find out you don't slow down because the organic is taken over now. And then there's nothing you can do about that. And then you might just decide to turn them off for a week, and just say, let's see what happens. But that is the luxury of that.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been playing with it and see what happens if I turn it off,
Yeah.
what happens if I ramp it up. Doesn't matter what time of the day. I'm trying to find my sweet spot. But,
Yeah.
to Chris's point, I do need to focus on which listings I'm going to advertise.
I think that's a big homework assignment for you.
Yeah.
And I think right now, because you're not like super, super busy, and I say that like you're not as busy as you would be in Q4, right? I'm sure you're busy. But now is the time that I would probably say, all right, I'm going to sit down for an hour today, and I am going to allocate that hour to only go through and look at the listings that I feel like I should be advertising.
Okay.
And then from there, another hour block, another day or later in that day would be, let's go in and let's look at the keywords that are being clicked on, and are they leading to sales? And if they're not, we're turning them off. And I say if they're not, and again, we've talked about this on our YouTube channel. We've done it in our Etsy ads training program. It's kind of like, you don't just turn off one. If it's related, if that keyword's related and you got 3 clicks and didn't get a sale, we're not turning it off. Right. Okay. We might say if it got 20 clicks and we're not converting, we're going to probably turn it off. Right. So it's kind of like a little bit of science there, but also a little bit of gut. But I think for you to keep your mind, sane is I would want to reduce that down to where you're advertising realistically 50 to 75 listings.
Okay.
Like instead of 1,000.
So Scott, at that same $44 budget, or do we want to bring it down even further at that $44 budget?
Yeah. If I had like a test that I would have you run, it would be trying to get it down to where you're let's going from 1,100 to 100, let's say, right? You went from 1,100 to 100. And then from there, right now you're doing 44. I'd say, let's try $25 a day and see what happens.
Okay.
And how are you picking those 100?
Yeah. What's that, Chris?
How are you picking those 100?
Well, again, I'm going to be looking at demand. Like what ones have the most demand, how much have they sold in the past? And I wouldn't base it off of like, well, these are already selling organically, so why should I advertise them? Because what you don't realize is like, could you sell more if you were showing up in one other placement? Right. And then that also then the next question would be like, okay, yes, I sold 80 organically without paying for them, but how many of those also came because you were advertising? You know what I mean? Because there is some influence there by you with sales velocity. Like,
yeah. And, just looking at some of my data last year, 100% of my sales were from ads. This year, 60% of sales are from ads.
Okay.
So
it's gotten better.
So, right. So I need to find my sweet spot, but I definitely have some homework to do.
Yeah, no. And I think that is time well spent for you. And just keeping in mind, like advertising something that doesn't have demand is probably not a good use of the advertising budget. And so what I mean by that is like, yeah, you can say, well, I got 5 sales last month because I was running ads. 5 sales, like not that big of a deal when we're talking about, we want to drive from ads. We want to drive traffic into our business. And to me, it's more about driving in the traffic that could lead to more sales from other products that might not have as much demand. That's kind of how I look at it. So you're kind of like having this flow from your in-demand product. So I'm sure out of those products, you're going to be able to find, and again, that sweet spot is that suite of products that are making up the bulk of the traffic. And then those are the ones that I'd be like, okay, now again, if you do a brand new product and you've done your research and you're like, there's proof this is selling 300 a month. And you're like, I want to get some of those. Then yeah, you're going to do the launch. You're going to basically, you're going to sell it for, at a good price with a discount. You're going to run Etsy ads. If you have an email list, you're going to email your list and you're going to pump that thing for about a week or two. Then you're going to back it off, a little bit. So that goes without saying, but I wouldn't just run ads on any product. Like my wife, I always tell her, I'm like, if you're launching a product because someone asked for it and you already had a lot of the components and you're going to do it for them, yeah, you're going to put it in your shop, but you're not going to advertise it. There's no reason to.
Right. Okay.
Right. Make
I
sense?
think the
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
the two
I think
factors
you
really
guys,
are
it's all common sense. It just needs to sink in.
Well, no, and sometimes it's just a second like set of eyes. It's like when you're in the weeds, it's hard to see, and when you zoom out and stuff, and you kind of talk through it. I think that's the big thing for all of us is just to be able
I
to talk through
appreciate
it and bounce ideas and bounce suggestions. This doesn't mean that these are all right. They're just like looking at it from a different angle. That's all.
Yeah.
What were you gonna
and
say,
it's
Chris?
not always intuitive, right?
Right.
Like the answer, if you're like, okay, I get why I should run Etsy ads, the answer should be advertise everything as long as it's not costing me money.
Right.
But then you have to think about the weird intricacies of how Etsy works and go, okay, maybe doing that doesn't make the most sense. So then you have to boil it down to the question of what do I need to be advertising now? And I think the two most important things to think about are what are the sales potential if it's a new product? So verifying that if you are going to spend money on it, that it has a better chance than something else in your catalog of not just bringing you that first click or that first sale, but a repeat customer. And then number two is what are the most in-demand products right now? Not what have I sold the most of all time, but if we were selling Christmas bass fishing hats, Scott and I would not be running ads on those right now. Why? Because I don't really care if one person in Montana is looking for that right now.
Right.
That budget is better used on, I don't know, 4th of July salmon trousers or whatever, right? Like Uncle Sam
Right.
salmon trousers. And
Right.
so that advertising budget will also go with the season. And if we're just advertising that entire catalog, I know you said you have some more seasonal things. Some of the things you're selling are more like vacation. Some of them are more Q4. And so we have to also take a look at that budget and say, is somebody buying Christmas stuff right now? Maybe. But is that same 20 cents or dollar, if you're going back to Scott's 5-click example, is that dollar better spent on family vacation stuff? And the answer is probably. And so if we start there, then we can look at of all of the things people would be buying right now, whether it's a seasonal thing or an evergreen thing, which seem to make the most sense. And we can limit our budget that way.
Yeah. Can we pull up her shop and we just kind of maybe now we'll take a glance at like everything, see how things are optimized, see if there's anything we can do there. All right, cool. So, all right. So first off, shirts, mugs, gifts, decor, a little something for everyone. Shop with Natasha's store. And so you said basically nurses and cottage core is kind of like the two.
But I need to update that.
Okay.
This is like when I first opened my shop, I never really went back to review
So
it.
let me ask you this. Do you update your banner per holiday?
I did not.
Okay. I would do that. So like,
I want to change my banner. I just haven't gotten to it. I think it looks messy.
Yeah, I think you could probably reduce the amount of images that you have there. I don't think a lot of times it's like less is more when it comes to that. Logo, I think is fine. And let's see here. Yep, you've got a picture of you, and is that
That's
okay.
my daughter.
Got it. So you have, and again, that looks personable, like, it's good. Updated January 4th. So again, like I would probably update the announcement just to show that it's more current, like you've been paying attention. Even if it's just going in there and adding a little blurb or, something, because what that does is it shows people that the store is active. Again, little subtle things. It doesn't mean it's going to make your sales skyrocket, but it just keeps things, to me, like when someone is coming through the shop, which we actually did a buyer seller or a buyer's survey for Etsy, which should be coming out with almost, I think, Chris, did we get about 275, 300 people that filled out that survey? Yeah. So
it's right around 300.
We're going to be doing a full report on that with a video breakdown and everything. And it's pretty surprising that people actually, they go to the shop and they look at these different areas, and those areas help them trust you. Right. So there is definitely some proof that those areas are important.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. So is that new Christmas sweatshirt? Is that a new one, or is that something you did last year?
It's last year.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking is just because, my wife has already done some stuff for Christmas. She's like, oh, I had a great idea for one. So she just pops it in there.
I'm doing some new ones just based on what I learned last year.
Yep. Yep. So I guess the one thing that I'm not seeing here and that I would probably want to see more of is, And again, I bet you if we did an 80-20 analysis, we would see 20% of the results kind of coming through. And then the other stuff is just kind of like there. So I would want to see a little bit more congruency on what has sold in the past. So like I see son-in-law, I see a pet ornament. I see,
Yeah,
okay.
it's I think it's sorted by recent sales. So this is
Okay.
this is just what people bought within the last week.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Chris will run this. Let's see. Cabin family vacation. That's interesting. Aesthetic shirt, nurse, bachelor.
Yeah, I just started doing those.
So okay, so I see here. So like the cabin family vacation, obviously that's like, so, hey, I wanted to cut in here real quick. If you're wondering what tool we're using to gather all of this information and to really make these important decisions on products, well, the tool is called Everbee. It's the only tool that we personally use for everything Etsy. They have everything from product research, keyword research, and they also offer email marketing now. That tool you can get access to absolutely free when you visit brandcreators.com/Everbee, and you'll get 10 free searches for the month. You can try it out before you invest in this tool. My recommendation is every single Etsy seller should be using this tool. So if you want to try it, go to brandcreators.com/Everbee, and you can go ahead and get access to it immediately. All right, let's get back to the audit. Maybe there's something there that can be done for people taking vacations in certain styles of vacations. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking just, again, like, okay, European vacation or Europe vacation. That's interesting. And again, so like, are you feeling like you're like, okay, this person that bought the cabin family vacation, that you have other things that person can buy? Like that is related to why they came to your store?
No, I haven't gotten there.
Okay, so now I have something to say about the Etsy ads.
Okay.
If you're spending money on Etsy ads and you drove someone over to the cabin family vacation and they bought it,
Mm-hmm.
if there was 2 or 3 other things they could buy, now all of a sudden your ads went from, they really didn't make me any money, to where their cart value, instead of it being $25, was $100. Do you see the difference?
I get what you're saying. I tried like a hat, but I need to have more things that go with that specific style.
Yeah. And that's another homework assignment for you. Okay.
Not necessarily that style, that niche, right?
Yes, and that's where I'm going. Yeah.
This becomes the challenge when we have and I'm going to throw out the Etsy word, eclectic store, right? We have a lot of different things that appeal to a lot of different people. The person who's coming in to buy the esthetician shirt isn't the same person necessarily that's going to buy the family vacation shirt. And so we have to try to hone in. And I think it not only makes your ads life easier, but it makes your design life easier. It makes everything a lot easier. If you come in and say, I really liked the nurse's healthcare niche, awesome. Let's dive full in on that. Or I really like the family memories niche. Awesome. Let's dive full in on that. It makes everything that you're doing a lot easier. And to Scott's point, if we're spending $1 on ads, we don't just get that first sale. There's the chance that they come back and buy something again and again, or they buy multiple things in that same transaction.
That day they could add more to their cart.
Yeah.
So, and so like, I'm thinking along these lines. And again, you've got plenty of time to do it before we head into the holiday season. But if someone's going shopping, like right now, okay, the cabin adventure, right? Or the cabin vacation, right? So you could literally do like, not just the one shirt, but you can, and maybe it is, I don't know, where you personalize for each person that's going on the trip.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Is that what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that allows you to sell more to that person. But like you said, matching hats, knit hats, right? Someone had put in the comments, a koozie.
Mm-hmm.
Like a koozie. Basically it's an insulator for like a mug, for like a beer or a drink.
Yeah.
Right. and they're pretty inexpensive. You can do those on print on demand all day long. So different accessories that would go with it. That would be like, you're buying a hat for everyone, you're buying shirts for everyone, and you're buying koozies for everyone. It could be the ultimate family vacation bundle, right? Because everyone's going skiing, the ski lodge, right? You can do a ski one. So you could actually literally pick types of vacations that people are going on for the holidays. And now all of a sudden you got that. Another one, you could do an ornament to remember the cabin stay vacation, right? And then all of a sudden you've got that piece in the mix, or someone comes in from the ornament, which you're not making as much on as you would, something else like a hat or a blanket. Even you can even do a blanket as like a memory from that thing. So what I'm saying is, like, you're leading people in with one thing, but there's 3 other items that could go with it as a bundle. And so then the Etsy ads become even more exciting. The other thing that becomes exciting is now, can you really build an email list in the way that it's happening right now? You could, but someone that buys the family vacation cabin thing and then the nurses thing is so far apart. Like, are you going to send an email and go, hey, thanks for buying my nurses, ornament. How about a cabin stay vacation shirt?
Right.
It doesn't align. So to me, I would want to go down the road of, how do I increase the cart value? Because then if you're running Etsy ads, number one, you're getting someone that potentially could buy more that day. And then the second thing is, you have a way of collecting an email address, and then you can go, hey, we just came out with matching hats because our customers wanted them. If you bought one of the shirts, this would go great with it. If you haven't bought a shirt yet, check them out. They're awesome, and then you'd link them there. We could totally just take that model and focus on it. And for Q4, and that could be a business in itself without even talking about your other stuff. And I'm not saying don't sell your other stuff, but if you are going to sell the other stuff, you almost have to segment your shop to be in like two or three different niches. And then you have to build an email list for each separate one, create products that serve each different customer. That's why I always like to just kind of focus on the one customer. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like right here, this shirt, it's saying like it's selling pretty well for you.
Yes.
Can you build off of that?
Right.
Right. It's a vacation tee. You can do a Christmas vacation tee. And I don't mean the movie Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Now we're just going into Chevy Chase movies. I don't know.
We're not doing that.
I think one of the things that's really cool, and I think a photography business, Scott, is a good example of this, right? The ideal business is where you get one customer and you can then sell them multiple things essentially forever. So Scott, I'm assuming your first transaction with somebody was not to try to sell them a whole bunch of prints. It was to book a photo session, right? You get them in on the photo session. Awesome. There's a fee for that. They're going to get some proofs. Maybe they're going to get a few prints. A few weeks later, you then say, hey, do you want a canvas print of that? A few months later, hey, Christmas is coming, right? Do you want your Christmas ones? And so here, somebody comes in on the cabin family vacation t-shirt, ideally, and it's not something we can do inside the Etsy ecosystem very easily, but ideally you say, oh, hey, they're doing custom ones. I know that they're coming in July. They're going to the cabin in July. Beginning of August, we send them an email and we say, hey, how'd you like a blanket to remember your trip to the cabin, right? And then Christmas comes around. Hey, you going back to the cabin or are you going somewhere else? And they're going to come back and look for other things with us. And we can move through them throughout the year and the different trips that they're going to take. I see one of the other things in here, right? The Alaska cruise hat. Okay. This is a very specific thing. There's a bunch of different cruises. You can do the Alaska one. You can do the river cruise. You can do the Caribbean cruise, right? We can start to expand that out. What are the other things they'd want to remember it after that? Is it a personalized photo blanket? Is it a map blanket, right? Where we map out the route that they went on, any of those kinds of things. And that then leads to repeat purchases from that same customer. I know we're going way outside of where you started in terms of a niche. And so the question that you have to answer is which one of these makes you a little bit more happy, but it starts to
anything that gives me a larger order will make me happy.
Okay.
So group shirts.
Perfect answer.
So group shirts is kind of was like my open the door for me. I tested it and it took off.
And it worked.
So I'm trying with Bachelorette and Bachelor in the same mountain kind of theme.
Yep.
Because I don't want just a Bachelor shirt with a beer mug on it because there are millions of them. So I want to try to cater to specific needs. and I want, like nurses, what I found out last year, which I didn't expect, they would buy for the whole cardiology unit.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm priced right, you have to have plus sizes, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm priced right and I say contact me for quantity discounts, I'm hoping that this year I'll be able to build on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it does sound like you're playing in two different niches, which is fine, but you are going to have to segment that out to where if you are building an email list, you're going to have one that's for people that are
Yeah,
camping, or not even camping, but like traveling, or group shirts, let's call it, right?
Experiential vacation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Whatever we want to.
And then the other one is going to be nurse, right? Yeah. And so it's like you have two separate niches that you're serving, but you're serving them with the same type of product.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you create hats for the one, you can create hats for the other. If you create, whatever, I'm just thinking, I mean, even like a candle as a memory, like a memory with a thing on it, you can do something there. But I'm just thinking outside the box, but your shirts, obviously sweatshirts, even a blanket, hats, koozies, like things like that. All of those, you just got to remember, one person can come in and go, oh, I'm buying the sweatshirt, but man, maybe I should get the hats for everyone too. That would be kind of cool.
Right. Right.
And now you all of a sudden go from, one thing in the order to two, or if they're buying, for 3 different people, now we went from 3 to 6. Your Etsy ads at that point, now we're just driving people in, and we always hear it on Shark Tank, right? It's like, what is the cost of acquisition, customer acquisition? We always hear that because they're always like, you're not making money on the first sale. You're making it on the second, third, fourth, and fifth. So that's what I would want to see you start focusing on, on top of like cutting down your 1,000 listings that you have advertised and focusing more on these. Like, can we get more awareness to the ones that are in demand for certain vacations at maybe certain times of the year? Christmas vacations are coming up. There's going to be people are going for Thanksgiving. Now we're not going to call it a Thanksgiving vacation, but like you said, Chris, maybe it's the cruises, because there's popular cruises, that are going out there, certain areas, skiing. There's a ton. But if you focus there, now you're talking like these little pockets. It's like, even though you might be doing an Alaskan cruise vacation sweatshirt, you're now putting that in the bucket of family vacations or destination vacations. Right. And people that travel to one place travel to other places. So if you have this suite of other places, they're like, oh, we're going to Hawaii next year, right? Like, let's get one for Hawaii.
Right. Let's see what she has for Hawaii.
Yeah. And you know what? You're going to also get this. Oh, I didn't see one in there for wherever,
I have, I'm starting to do some blankets for Halloween and pets, dogs. And like someone said, well, what about Thanksgiving? Okay,
yeah.
I'll make it for you because I have time now, and see if it sells for me.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is you're going to get ideas, but as long as it's in the bucket, the category,
it's not.
I know you just said it's a blanket for pets and stuff. So we can't, that's the problem with a lot of people, is like, they're like, oh, but they asked me for it and it's not necessarily what I do, but I could do it. It's like, that's where you have to have the blinders on. You have to say, is that going to help me build my bucket over here and my bucket over here?
Yeah. So honestly, last year I tried everything. This year I'm kind of like you're pointing out some obvious things to me.
Yeah.
That weren't obvious to me because I'm in the weeds and I'm doing so many different things. So let's do this again next year at this time.
I would love to.
I learn anything.
Here's the thing I know about you though, Francesca, is you're going to do something. You're going to take action. You're going to actually do it. Like, so that's the one thing I can see already, is like, you started and you learned and you learned and then you did more. And so you're constantly doing it. You got the right mindset too, that, like, I'm going to just roll it in to get momentum and to see what works. And now you've done that. So now it's a matter of, like you said, and this is a perfect call because we're stepping back, we're zooming out, and we're like, okay, wait a minute here. We have nurses. We could do nurse shirt packages just like we could do over here for, vacation destinations. So I'm okay with you splitting into 2 different niches if you want to, because you're still only serving those 2 audiences. Right. And I think you could do your 100,000 in probably one of them, let alone two of them. Like if we add two of them, now we're definitely going to be able to get there. And I think if we set ourselves up there, because each of those here's the other thing. Each of those also lends itself to a Christmas ornament.
Yes.
And a Christmas ornament at Christmas time is one of the number one sellers.
Yes.
So if you can bolt on one for a nurse, bolt one on for vacation, because they want to document where they went, what year they went, bingo. And now you lead in with the other, and you might lead them in with the ornament, but then you sell them the sweatshirts and the hats and the koozies.
Yeah, I need to research that, the ornaments and vacations. I haven't.
Well, so
yeah,
I would look at that, but the obvious one is like Volker family cabin trip 2024.
Yep.
Right.
Simple.
And if we can get them in with that, then they go, oh, that's really cool. Francesca has cool family vacation related things. Then when vacation comes around, they're like, let's go get the family t-shirt at Francesca's Shop with Natasha, right? Like, let's do that. Right. And there's a lot of variations that we can create, but I would start with the really obvious ones like Schaefer Family Cruise 2024 and put a big old boat on it, right? Like, you have the design skills. I clearly don't. But if we just think about the different vacation types, we could start with those. And even if we just start fairly generically, it's still a personalizable item because they're probably not buying 2022 ornaments, right? They're probably buying 2024 ornaments. And so the only thing we have to change is the last name. That is something that's very easy to personalize. And it's something that captures the exact customer that we'd be looking at throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
It was very helpful. I appreciate it.
So do you feel like you have a good direction?
Yeah, I feel like I came out of my squirrel thing.
Okay.
And I stepped back a little. So thanks for your help.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, cool. So yeah. Oh yeah. No, don't worry. We've all been there, and it works for all of us. So it's like zooming out is really important to do. So I'm glad it was helpful. My next thing is, and we're going to wrap it up with this, is like, I know you're going to go and take this and you're going to do it. My biggest thing for you is to just try not to get distracted with those other things and try to just keep telling yourself, if I can increase my order size, I'm going to do less work because now you're not having to jump from like, what was it in? It was in a pet one. Oh, wait a minute here. This was in the nurses one. Oh, this was in this one. It's like, it's so messy. And if you do that, and if you get the momentum of building the email list, then next holiday season, when you have 3,000 sales, you've got 3,000 potential email customers that you can then send, hey, we're going to do a 20% Christmas sale in July. And then all of a sudden you start bringing your sales up in July where you're not so busy, but then you can spike the sales. So yeah, I would love to have you back on next year and we can report back and see where you're at. So we're going to have to make a note of that. Anything else before we let you go?
No, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Awesome.
And I look forward to reporting back.
Sounds like a plan. So that's a wrap for this Etsy shop audit. But if you want to watch more, well, you can find some more right here. And if you do, well, I'll see you there.